have you seen anything like that?
I'm a very confident front runner. I've caddied for 33 years, 145 wins now, and that's the best win I've ever had.
I have no idea what you have.
I don't know. How are we going to count all the shots? I can't keep track.
God damn it.
I don't think he's pleased.
Of course I would. That's a particularly stupid question. It's the Irish Open. Of course I want to play at the weekend.
Hello. It is 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, the Sunday of the 2025 US Open at Oakmont, and in around. Whoa, we're getting a second going of the intro. I whistled along with the first one, Gary. I don't know if you noticed. Perfectly in tune, so you might not notice.
I thought it was pretty good, actually. I can whistle a little bit. Singing is not for me.
Oh no, I don't know if I can hold a tune, but once the karaoke machine is out, Gary, I'm there front and center.
Depends on the level of points.
But obviously. Hello, everybody. This is our watch along. So you can leave your comments right now on the YouTube channel or wherever it is on your screen, and we'll put them to Gary. We will also be putting this up as a podcast. So if you're listening later this afternoon, ahead of the final groups teeing off this evening, enjoy the podcast. It is a Murphy special. Myself and Gary finished traveling to Chicago. We had guests lined up, but seems not going to happen. So it's just the two of us. But that's fine, Gary, because you are the brains of the operation. How are you?
I'm good. I actually bumped into quite a few friends of the pod on Thursday in the K Club. I was doing a Beat the Pro. Okay. Which is nice to hear. It's a pity Rory let us down last minute. Obviously, he was coming on this morning, but stuff to do.
Shane Ryan screwed it all up for us, didn't he? Shane and his stupid goddamn questions. And those American journalists. Let's not start with Rory, because I feel we're like this is the next stage of the Rory evolution. Is we're going to be talking about what's up with Rory for the next 6 months. So let's give due deference to the guys who are at the top of the leaderboard, many of whom are bidding for a first major title, many of whom are making to have a form of history at the end of tonight. So if you went to bed last night because it went on pretty late, it was heading towards 1 a.m. by the time they all finished up. They're starting about an hour earlier tonight, so we should be done by sort of midnight. Sam Burns holds a one-shot lead, around a 69 for the American. So he is on 4 under par. Adam Scott could be the longest gap ever between majors if Adam Scott can win tonight. He's on 3 under par, shot behind after 67, so he hasn't had a single over par round all week. He's alongside JJ Spawn, who I think, in fairness, as we said on Friday morning, probably wasn't going to go anywhere with such a bank of good golf in his locker this year. Victor Hovland, who's been described as the European Jordan Spieth for the eccentricity and the general madness of his round. He's on 1 under par, and they're the only 4 players under par right now. On level par, you have Carlos Ortiz, who admitted himself this has sort of come from nowhere. 1 over par, Tyrrell Hatton and Tristan Lawrence. 2 over par, Rasmus Nørgaard Peterson. And then you get into the probably need the leaders to come back to them. Bob McIntyre dropped a shot on 18, and Cam Young, who are on 3 over par. And then on 4 over par is the group that includes the world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. Gary, main takeaway from last night?
I think it was exciting towards the end. The kind of front nine was a bit flat-ish. It was kind of steady. You're looking for a bit of drama, really, from a bit of nerves, and Spawn and Burns didn't really show it at all. And then the kind of Cinderella story with Scott playing the last, 5 or 6 holes and 3 under to put himself in position. And then it's the curious, Hovland's hanging around. And we've seen previously with him, probably more so when he's been on top of his game, he can go crazy on a Sunday. It's very hard to go crazy around here, but kind of 4 under is probably like a 10 under somewhere else. So there's some really good storylines. I think it's refreshing too that there was a little bit of it at the PGA, but it's not all about the kind of the top guys in the world, and it just proves how deep the tours are, that anyone on their given week when they find their A game can compete for the biggest titles.
So Sam Burns has a 1-shot lead. The fact he got to 4 under, it looked at one stage like maybe they might end up coming back to 2 under or maybe even 1 under. But the course had softened up considerably, incredibly soft for the guys who were the early starters yesterday, as we saw from a couple of McIlroy shots from the middle of the fairway and the water that came when he was hitting his hybrids. The fact that he's gone a 4 under, does that take, say, Scheffler out of it?
It's all those guys need, as you were saying at the top, they need a bit of help. They can't, if the leaders play well, they can't really win. You wouldn't put it past Scheffler. He needs a click. He's been out of sorts all week. I was kind of saying it in the preview. I just think this event, because it's their National Open, it's just that added, this is their biggest tournament. So that's something that might help Scott. He's an Australian. It's just a major for him, where the major and the US Open champion for an American is a double title almost. So Scotty will push really hard at the start. I'd say his strategy within reason might go a tiny bit out the window. Front nine, if he's sniffing, and obviously it will on the back nine if he's, if he needs to probably shoot at least 3 under front nine. And hope to get to 1 under maybe and get a bit of help from the top. But it does seem like a stretch for him at the moment.
He needs a Johnny Miller style 63.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be out there really, does it?
No,
it doesn't seem possible almost. 3. Although the scoring was better yesterday, I think as the course dried out from being borderline unplayable to manageable. But then you're adding greens with a lot of spin and slope, so it's a brutal test. I've kind of enjoyed it, ish. I just think
ish, isn't it?
I don't want, I don't mind the jungle off the fairway. I think jungle around the greens, when you're seeing, world class short game guys chipping it across greens and down hills, it's a bit of a lottery, really.
Yeah, it's the course setup that may reward us late on tonight, because, as you said, part of the problem is it's very hard to go in a charge. So you're not looking at somebody 4 back thinking, all right, they might reel off 4 birdies in a row. You basically need the top guys to collapse. And I said online last night, I got to that moment that you sometimes get to in majors where you go, Sam Burns and Victor Hovland and like JJ Spawn, like, what a nice guy he comes across, and this will be the greatest moment of his life, and boy, does he deserve it. But part of me wants him to just shoot something terrible for my entertainment.
Yeah, that's horrendous. That is so bad.
It is terrible. It's terrible. I'm sitting there going, like, let these 3 guys just battle it out tonight and have a good time, and one of them gets a major. And for all of them, like, Sam Burns has been one of the better American golfers over the last 5 or 6 years. He's got 4 or 5 wins. He's sharing a house this week with Scotty Scheffler, which I'm assuming is a positive.
Unless Bennett's up bawling his lungs off all last night, it's positive. I think he's got kids of his own too. But no, I think it's a weird dynamic in the sense that Scheffler is 8 back. I don't know when was the last time someone did this? I'm gonna off the top of my head say Paul Lowry, but it's a long
at the
time
US Open, I know nobody since Lee Jansen had come from 7 back.
Okay, so maybe Scotty. If Scotty doesn't win, he wants Sam Burns to win. So I'm sure their chats last night were interesting. But he's rode his luck a little bit. He's an elite putter. So I think if his putting holds up tonight, he's going to be difficult to beat. I think JJ Spawn has the Players' Championship to harp back on. He's only one tour. But he did everything right at Sawgrass and just got unlucky. He's a bit steadier tee to green than Burns. He's putting well with that lab putter, which is very popular at the moment. So that's an interesting combination there. And then you've got the 45-year-old Aussie in the middle of it who hasn't won a major in 11 years, trying to do a Brent Crenshaw and Guy Boris, I think was the other one. So if the only thing I'd worry about Scott is if his nerve holds up. That's all.
Why would you question Scott's nerve with all the experience that he has?
Because when you swing the club as well as he does and you win you don't win as much as you should have done. It's got to suggest that, you know, he gets a little bit tight, and but he doesn't manage that tightness. And there's a few more miles on the clock. So I think he's going to have to cruise with steady play to win, and maybe get a little bit of help, or else he can rip all the pages off the calendar and just play the Adam Scott round that he played when he first came onto the scene, when he looked and swung the club as well as Tiger did, and we thought, here's a generational player. Now he has been. He's had. Listen, I'm splitting hairs here, and I don't have many to split, but he's a phenomenal player, but should have won a lot more than what he has won. So then, you know, can he dig deep tonight and find something that he hasn't found in 11 years? And, you know, Lytham was as bad a defeat as you'll ever see in an Open Championship. He came back to win the Masters the following spring. So there's loads of different storylines. And then Victor Hovland doesn't seem to be able to play the game anymore. Talking about giving it up, and then he wins in Tampa, and he could add his first major. So it's nice that you're not talking about the Rorys and the Scotties all of the time, and hopefully we get a new winner tonight.
Carol wondering on Discord, how many of the family do you have around for breakfast at the moment, Gary?
Oh, it's quite noisy, is it?
You got that awkward thing that I also have on a Sunday morning, whereas if the kids come barging in, it's like, how appropriate is it for me to shout at my children on a live broadcast?
No, it's just a look. I think the look does it.
The look gives it up.
Just give them the look. Hopefully that works.
Doing this thing.
Yeah, exactly. They could all hear you. I thought they couldn't.
Golfers' resilience, and where we look at last Sunday night and Sam Burns and the devastation of missing out in the playoff against Bob McIntyre, he's able to actually draw on a lot of good golf in his locker. But at the Open last year, he had a chance going into the final round. He was one off the lead. He ends up shooting 80. That playoff defeat last year, that balance of, yes, I've got a lot of good golf in the locker, but when it's come down to it, I haven't been able to deliver. Is that the concern about him tonight?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that too, and you know, he's won 5 times, so he's a world-class player. You know, that's an amazing career in its own right, and you think he's another 10 years left at the top. So he's probably going to get into double figures PGA Tour wins. A major probably counts for, 5 PGA Tour events, I'd say 5 or 6. So it's new ground for him. And when he's been thereabouts, he hasn't, found the secret ingredient. But I think with all of them, and with every professional golfer, everyone messes up. It's how you can learn from the mess up the next time around. That's what kind of disappointed me a little bit about Shane this week. He just didn't have it all weekend. You can write it down. It's just a bad week. But I thought he would have learned a little bit more from Oakmont. And listen, it just didn't go his way, and that's golf too. But Burns has a little bit of scar tissue, even for a guy who's been a fairly prolific winner, as prolific as you can be in today's environment. But I think it sets up for a little bit of the back nine at Augusta, where we're going to see a lot of vulnerability on an unbelievably difficult golf course that preys on the weak. So I think the strongest guy tonight mentally is the one that's going to get it over the line.
And that's the opportunity for those guys behind as you get in 45 minutes earlier, you set level par or 1 under par and hope that they come back to you. As Sam Burns, in terms of stats this week, so you'll hear the line and have heard the line, he's the best putter on tour. He hasn't been the best putter this week. JJ Spawn has been comfortably the best putter in terms of stroke gained this week. In fact, Sam Burns is all the way down in 16th in terms of strokes gained. Where he has made all of the ground is on his approach play. So again, his driver has been wobbly, and of the leading contenders, his driver has been the most wobbly, but he's given himself a lot of opportunities with his approach play, and maybe that is the key metric this week, because that means a hell of a lot less stress, Gary.
It does, and I think when you're so proficient strokes gained approach, it does help your strategy massively. You don't tend to get too greedy. You know, if you're hitting the ball really well and you're controlling your spin and your loft and distance, you know, there's no panic setting in. So the challenge for him tonight is if he continues to be a little bit awry off the tee, can he still have the same peace of mind and same structure to the way he's played the first 3 rounds? On a Sunday at the US Open, that's the biggest question he has to answer.
Donald's wondering, was it Nathan's whistling that prompted the Happy Mondays to invite him on stage at Witness? No, it was not. I don't know if now's an appropriate time to tell the story of the Happy Mondays at Witness, but whistling was not involved. It was more maracas were what was necessary for the Happy Mondays at Witness. Tom Fairbrother is asking, is it time for the man baby Shane Lowry to apologise for his on-course behaviour? It gets worse every week, smashing up the course, swearing, treating people disrespectfully. This guy needs to grow up. And Donald saying Rory smashed up a tee marker Friday and nobody said a word about it. I think a lot of people said a word about Rory smashing up the tee marker. Shane obviously put out not a statement, he put out a message on Instagram yesterday basically saying that, yes, I run hot and yes, I'm very passionate, but I still feel that is what brings the best out of me. I know in the Discord there was an exchange with his caddy that upset a lot of people again. Like that is Shane. Like we've probably said this for a while, that there's this impression of, oh, he's just happy to be out there, Mr. Nice Guy. Like that's not what you get on the golf course. And certainly by what we saw from what he put up online yesterday, he ain't apologizing to nobody about it.
No, he's not, and he's kind of sticking to his guns on it. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it. I do think that when you're that, you know, even from a blood pressure point of view, when you're that volatile or that up and down, it's very difficult to find a bit of inner calm coming down the stretch. I think Tiger won so much because he controlled his emotions better than anyone. And Shane Lowry is an elite level player. And he's looking for tiny margins to, you know, maybe end up winning 2 or 3 majors and, you know, multiple PGA Tour wins. And I think it is something that he needs to look at, because even from, and it doesn't seem to be important anymore with the media and whatnot, but even from a PR point of view, he's losing a little bit of love, I think, from the crowd. So, and if you look back to the grief that Monty got in his career when he played in the States, you don't want, you know, to give the crowd an opportunity to get in your back. It's hard enough to play in these big events and try compete and try win them. So I think it is something he has to look at. But
funnily enough, I think he's the opposite to Monty Gary in that I think the Americans love him. I think the Americans really like that side of him. And maybe it's their perception of what Irishness is embodied by Shane. Whereas I think actually some of the criticism has started to come more from this part of the world, where it's not every week, but you do wonder, and I'm sure he has tried this and he works with psychologists and all of that, without needing to be the sort of Tyrrell Hatton on that European Tour video where they, you know, every time you get angry, you just give the thumbs up, without needing that, as to, like, is there a different way? You know, if you were to give yourself a run of 3 or 4 tournaments of, right, I'm going to really work hard on the mental side of it, of not getting frustrated, of not taking it out of my caddy, of just accepting the world, the way Scotty Scheffler seems to accept whatever it is, that there's a higher power out there, would that actually make him a better golfer? Or does he need that little bit of anger inside him to get the best out of him?
I know, I think he needs plenty of that, but it's when it boils into frustration. You know, and the other side of it, you know, the sport, that's just the way the sport is designed. It's designed to drive you insane. So if you can micromanage the battles once or twice, you know, 7 or 8 times over the course of a tournament, and you can get 2 or 3 shots out of it, that can be the tiny margin. You know, it happened to him in Troon last year. And it's happened a couple of times this year. So I think it's something to look at. It's like, he's a great lad, Shane. You know, he's great company. He's a great fella to be around. And trying to present that personality a little bit more. Like, life's good. You know, he's at the top of his sport. He's a multimillionaire. He lives in South Florida. The sun's splitting the trees, as they say. You know, he's a beautiful wife, lovely kids, and more money than he could ever spend. So there's no reason to be that frustrated with getting a shitty bounce or something going wrong. Now, that's trite and easy for me to say because I'm not in that situation, but I'm still playing the game and I understand the nuances of how frustrating the game can be. But I'm still trying to learn that value of, you know, appreciating that is the sport that we've chosen to play. And if you get in your own way, there's always someone better within reason on a given week. And if you're giving them that tiny advantage, because if you look at his body language when he's playing Ryder Cup, it's completely different. Completely different. Like he's way more expressive when he does something good. He's hardly expressive at all when he does something good in regular events. You never see him run across the green or releasing any tension. So it seems to be like there's a pent up build of, you know, I don't want to mess up maybe at times. So that's a kind of fine line.
That's almost a bit of, and I've been very reductive here. That's almost a bit Irish, isn't it?
Well, it is. Yeah, it is.
When things go bad, well, I'll be as expressive and angry and effing and blind and fuck this. Whereas actually, when I do something brilliant, well, I don't want to look too flashy here and be giving it the big, yeah, come on. So you don't actually enjoy the high points the way you should and let loose and have that freedom. Whereas when you have the negatives, you just can't help yourself.
Well, you know, I think it is. It's in our DNA in some shape or form. When you've been persecuted for a long time, you generally keep your bow down. So there's always, you don't want to get your head too far above the parapet, but trying to find, now, listen, he's working with Bob Rotella, who has worked with all of the great players within reason in the world of golf. And whilst he's unbelievably good at his job, he will have learned a huge amount from all those players too. So he'll be taking little nuggets from certain players and he'll use them with other players because that's just the way the world works. You know, because there's nothing physically in Shane's game that he has to, you know, get better at. There's no glaring thing. He seems to be putting with way more freedom. That was probably his only slight Achilles heel. So physically, it's all there. He's in good shape. He's strong and he's fit. His ball speed's great. He's continued to add length really throughout his career. So whatever work he does in the gym is paying dividends. So there's just a tiny little difference there, and I'd love to see him because he's such a great smile as well, doesn't he? So we just like to see more of it.
Yeah, you get the sense maybe that the frustration is greater than ever because he knows where he is right now with his game. That he won all these incredible tournaments, but he's actually so much better as a golfer right now that he's feeling not he's feeling he deserves something, but actually he probably does deserve something for the quality of golf that he's consistently playing.
But therein lies the problem. Like if that's the narrative in your head, that's why you're getting frustrated. You don't deserve anything. You got to go out and do it. And when you do it and you hold that big silver trophy up, well, then you deserve it. You can't. The game doesn't owe you anything. It never will. It doesn't matter if you're playing off 25 handicap in the captain's prize. And, you know, the game doesn't allow that. You have to do it. It's never going to give you anything. Okay, you'll get a good bounce here or there, but if you're of the attitude that, oh, you know, I'm due one, you've no chance of achieving stuff. You got to go out and work hard, work really hard on the things that you need to work on, and just get better. You know, as Tiger always said, just get better. You just have to get better. And there's things that Shane has to get better at. And if he doesn't get better at it, that's what we're going to see. And he is in amazing form. Like he's having a phenomenal season. He's going to be a number 3 or 4 guy in our Ryder Cup team. He's gone back to Portrush next month around the course that he loved well before he even won the Open there. So, and if you look back to the highlight reel there, you know, his body language was great. You know, granted, there's no denying on Sunday he's nervous and in a state of panic like everyone would be, but he managed that situation so well. So it's well within him to do it, and I'd like to see that going forward for the rest of the summer because, you know, he's well up on the FedEx. Like there's a lot to play for Lowry. outside of the last major of the year.
Tyrrell Hatton not out of it on one over
No,
par.
not
And
at all.
actually, I'd mentioned this when talking about John Ram and the difficulty of the course, and maybe it suits the guys who run a little bit hot. And that's what Tyrrell Hatton was saying after the round last night, that he feels, well, I feel like I'm getting a bad break everywhere I go. So here, where everybody's getting a bad break, I've got a massive advantage.
Yeah, and his attitude is, I think he's fantastic. I really do. I think he's a wonderful player. He gets really angry and then he completely switches back on. It never seems to fester with him. And he looks like he literally wants to chop something up. But he's a great ability to, and he plays so quickly as well. Like there's very little dilly-dallying going on with him. So he's very decisive when he's on. And when he's playing very well, he wins a lot of golf tournaments. So he's total trust in what he's trying to do. It'd be, if he could, open up 3 or 4 under after 9, that'd be a very exciting back 9, because he wouldn't be afraid of it. There's no denying that. And he is, even outside of this week, he is someone I look very favorably at Portrush, because he's a link specialist as well.
It is surprisingly, in a way, uncharted territory for Tyrrell Hatton, because he hasn't put himself in contention for too many majors. So he has 68 yesterday to put himself right in the mix. But there's going to be some nerves for Hatton as well. Victor Hovland, so he's on 1 under par. He's 3 shots behind Sam Burns, but one of the 4 players under par. I mentioned that there's a lot of talk of Jordan Spieth and a comparison between the way they played again. We saw that from him yesterday on the first, when he has to take a drop, goes miles right. Something for another time is, at some stage, somebody's going to have to talk to spectators and start moving them a bit further back. Like we saw it, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Hatton, Hovland is hitting this shot from on the path. And listen, he's happy enough to hit it from there. It's probably the best lie you're going to have all week. Now he ends up clipping a tree and getting very, very fortunate and escaping with a bogey on the first. But you're also thinking, when it's on the path, the ball can move ever so slightly just as he's about to hit it or something, and you're 15 feet away. Bloody hell. Maybe they're just looking for a cheap lawsuit. And then, so we've that, and then 17, like from way out on the right-hand side, where nobody was getting up and down. That shot in 3 feet birdie. Funny enough, he again is someone who's maybe not relying on all of his strengths, in that he's not driving the ball particularly well. But the fact that around the greens is so difficult for everybody, it feels like it's a real leveler. And Hovland is finally finding himself in a position where we felt he would get to for a long, long time, which is contending for a major. Like it'd feel right for Victor Hovland to win this US Open.
It would, and it would kind of sum up the sport in essence too, that he's actually struggled. If you think back to Marco Simone, when he was probably the best player on the planet, he lost his way. And I think that happens all the time in careers anyway. There's no one's immune to going through it. A 10 or 15-year career and not struggle at some point in it, whether it's your game or whether life gets in the way or whatever it might be. But I think for him to win tonight, he has to drive the ball. He's not going to win this. I know Sam Burns has been remarkable out of the rough, but he's not going to win this out of the rough. So he needs to find his driver tonight to set him up, because I think on the greens he'll be fine. He's an elite iron player. So, and whilst the grass kind of negates a bit of short game genius, I think the driver is key for him tonight. Plus, if you're getting patriotic about it, these are kind of bright European lights. So it'd be nice to see a European win the US Open.
Funnily enough, when you look at the top 4 and sort of strokes gained and all of that, so JJ Spawn on putting, as I say, has been the most impressive so far, just ahead of Sam Burns, then Adam Scott, and Victor Hovland's actually lost strokes on the green. Would that make you more or less positive about Hovland's chances, that actually he hasn't putted particularly well so far and he's still there, or would that suggest he's just really struggling with these greens?
Well, I think they're kind of all within reason struggling, but it's trying to get the speed dialed in early doors today when you're nervous. And he's a streaky putter. So the fact that he's in contention and hasn't putted well, if he can start rolling a few in early in the front 9, completely changes his mentality on the greens. And he is that good. If he can have one good day on the greens, he can win this thing. And that's probably the way he's going to frame it for himself too. He's thinking he's due to hold some putts, where sometimes if you're on a hot streak for 3 days, the law of averages, you're going to run out of a little bit of road. So I don't mind that so much with Hovland. He hasn't really struggled massively like if you look at the struggles that Morikawa had, who played decent golf. So I think he's a little bit left in the tank to rely on today. But how he opens up, if he drives it better and can see the ball going in the hole early, or hold some good 6-7 footers for par, which are the crucial putts. They're all going to have 3 or 4 of those today, and the guy that manages that the best, I think, is going to win the tournament. So
Victor isn't thinking about winning the tournament. He's just thinking about hitting the shots. He was asked what I would describe as a typical journalist question. I wonder, how do you assess your position, where you're at right now, and how badly do you want to win one of these things we call a major? To which Victor said, how badly do you want to win a major? We have to sort of add in the one of these things to add a little bit of drama and prestige to the US Open. Victor said, sure, we'd all like to win. That's why we practice so hard. But there's also a deep passion in me that I want to hit the shots. Like, I want to stand up on the tee and hit the shots that I'm envisioning. When the ball's not doing that, it bothers me.
That's dangerous ground. That's dangerous ground.
I was wondering that thing of, I don't just want to win, I want to impress everybody. Whereas, you don't need to hit any of the shots. You just need to hit less shots than anybody else there, Victor.
The game doesn't work. And I was giving a young player a lesson the other day. Really good player, plus handicap. And I played in Portmarnock last Tuesday, and I played fantastically well. I shot 9 under.
What?
And I hit 3 horrendous golf shots in a round of 63. So that's just the game. If you're chasing rainbows in golf, you're looking at an early grave. It doesn't exist. So if I look back at that round and went, how can you possibly thin a wedge from 120 yards out the back of the green? How can you possibly do that?
Nobody asking me. I know how I do that.
But you're bogey in the next hole, or you're doing something stupid. And I got up in the next hole and had a beautiful drive in the 7-iron to 12 feet. And I missed the putt. And it didn't faze me that I missed the putt, because I hit a good putt. But if you're going, how can you possibly miss that 12-footer? And if you play the game like that, it's going to haunt you. It's literally going to haunt you. Now, you have someone of his ability who deep down in his soul probably thinks he can play it perfectly. It doesn't exist. Hank Haney said of Tiger, he only disimproved when he left the range. And that's the challenge of trying to put your preparation into practice when you're on the golf course. You have to accept and move forward and keep, looking forward. If you're dwelling or scolding yourself, it's exhausting. The game is just exhausting if you allow that to happen.
It does almost, in a way, contradict the way he plays the game, because when he finds himself in trouble and he finds himself in peculiar spots, his head doesn't drop. He seems excited, Spieth-esque, by that challenge of, what can I pull off here? And the entertainment that goes with that. At the same time, modern golf probably indulges that sort of mindset, because he already has more money than he could ever imagine, and he won the FedEx Cup and all of that sort of stuff. So in a way, for the majority of players, I think that frees them up to want to win, because you're not looking at your bank balance constantly thinking, all right, I'll just take 4th or 5th place. Actually, it can be all or nothing, but actually it also indulges that type of, I don't want to say behavior and be too harsh on them, it's one answer, but that idea of, well, I'm just going to go out and play my game, and if that's enough, it's fine. If it's not, it's fine. Rather than, I'm just going to do, I'm looking around at this leaderboard. Adam Scott's getting old. Yeah, he's won a major, but is his swing going to hold up? Like Sam Burns, Bottler, Carlos Ortiz, who the hell are you? JJ in the water at 17 in Sawgrass. That's what I'm thinking if I'm Victor. I want to reduce this to a giant match play, and I'm going to kill all of you, rather than I'm just going to hit some nice shots.
But and here's the thing, and you mentioned the money. It's like Carlos Ortiz is playing on live. Like if he wins the US Open tonight, financially it's an irrelevance to him. If this was Carlos Ortiz 3 years ago, just on the PGA Tour, trying to win his US Open, it's a completely different golf course, completely different golf tournament. So, and there's a little bit of sadness in that too, that they're all so vastly wealthy. Like the only financial story is that guy Cohn. You know, if he can shoot 69 tonight, he's going to make a truckload of money. You know, and that's kind of what we're used to watching in professional golf. But they're all so rich now. There's no liability financially whether they blow out or
yeah. So that's an interesting point on Carlos Ortiz, actually. That ordinarily a Carlos Ortiz sitting 4 shots off the lead, you be coming into this going, whew, he is one of those guys who's thinking, all right, I want to win, but also I don't want to shoot 80 and lose all of the benefits that I get with a top 5 and FedEx Cup points and all that. Or actually, none of that stuff matters to him. He's fine. Financially, he's just fine. So he can go out with a bit of, look, there's going to be nerves. He wants to win a US Open. He probably still unsure whether he has the golf game to do it. But all that other stuff that might be in your head on a Saturday night when you're sitting down with your family, that's not there for him the way it would have been for a player of his caliber pre-live.
It's almost like they're back playing amateur golf again. You know, it's like they're not really like JJ Spawn and Simon Burns are not playing for money tonight, which I find it mind-boggling, really. Not that you don't, when you're out there, you're not playing for the money, but there's something in the back of your mind kind of going, well, maybe so. Like you're never hitting the putt thinking this is for X amount, but as Raider said to me once, putt for 100 grand's easy because you're guaranteed about 77. So, but I think it's changed a little bit of the kind of dynamic in amongst the players. The jeopardy is way less now. Now it is for the guys at the bottom of the money list trying to hang on to status. I think it's even more profound for those guys. But at this level, trying to win majors tonight, and even in Portrush, it's not going to matter.
We're going to
often probably don't even know to check.
We'll spend more time on this topic later in the week, but I think we need. So you went around Portmarnock in 9 under. Can you hear me, Gary? We seem to have lost Gary. Are you there?
Turn off.
Are you there, Gary? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry, I can hear you now. You're just buffering on me there.
Sorry, I was just saying we can spend more time on this again. But you went around Portmarnock in 9 under.
Yes.
The week before, you set a course record at Doombeg. $10 under, yeah. So I don't want to say you're wasting your time on this podcast. Like, should you? Are you going to go for? Never mind the Seniors Open. Are you going to go for pre-qualifying for the Open?
No, I know what my level is, and it's not playing in the Open Championship in Portrush.
When did you last play this well?
I'd say this is the first time I've started to play a little bit like I used to play, to be honest. I invested in a TrackMan. We have a GC quad in work, and I've done more practice using a lot more technology. A good friend of mine, Peter Morgan, Ellen Park, I've had good chats with him about my game, and he's helped me a lot on it. And I've worked really hard on my short game. I was up chipping at 10-6 this morning, so I'm trying to put a bit of effort into it, and I'm starting to enjoy it again. And yeah, at the moment, it's and it's like anything. Like I was first reserve for Greece last week and didn't get in, so really frustrating. But I'm going to China the first week in July, and I've got a big tournament trying to qualify for the Senior British Open and then I've got Trump the start of August, and then Galgorm hopefully the end of August. So I've got something to look forward to, and just trying to find a bit of inner calmness. I think that's the secret too. Because the funny thing is, I played in, and you're always trying to learn and always trying to adapt. When I played in Doonbeg, I shot 10 under, and I almost didn't know what score I was in the last hole. And then in Portmarnock, I was 8 under through 13, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to count it up now and try handle that and enjoy it. And so just trying to learn both sides of the curve, you know, because sometimes you hear people that are leaderboard watchers and some people are not. But I think it's important to do. Now, unfortunately, in those 2 rounds, there was no leaderboard out there. So, you know, but it's not about that. And I would say to anyone who's, you know, good amateurs trying to get better and lower their handicap, you're all the time trying to coach yourself. You're all the time trying to learn from yourself, because undoubtedly you're your best coach, really.
Is it 16 or 17 at Druids Glen is the par 3 over water?
17.
17, because one of the, maybe until I played with you last Sunday, and
You played well last Sunday.
yeah, because we were never going to use my drives.
Yeah, but there's your lesson in that. You drove the ball really well.
So just give myself a break.
Yeah.
Here's me questioning Shane Lowry about being harsh on himself. I just need to give myself a break.
Well, as Bo put it beautifully to me one day, listen, we're all shit at golf. Some days we have good days. You know, that's just the way it is.
Dave Howard obviously was exceptional that day and was so impressive. But when you were talking about the score you were putting together and maybe not knowing, one of my favorite days on a golf course was must be 10, 12 years ago. And Conor Deegan, formerly of this parish, we were, myself and Connor and Dave McIntyre and Adrian Barry were down at Druids Glen, and Connor was off +5, obviously, as everyone will remember. We were standing over, he was standing, literally just walking up to take his shot on 17 over the water. And Dave McIntyre goes, you know, if you par these last 2 holes, you're going to hit a 59.
Wow.
And he probably put it in the water. And I always wondered if Dave hadn't said to him just as he was about to hit the shot,
but that,
if he had par these last 2.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I was kind of, sometimes it happens. It would happen to Rory and Scotty a lot. Probably happened to them 25, 30 times in the season where they would have no idea what their score is. And that's the kind of level, you know, you're trying to attain. So it might happen to me 4 or 5 times. And that's the subtle difference. But because then you're just playing the game, you know, and then you have to learn to deal with the scoreboard too and enjoy, you know, it's, you know, in the summertime, the Captain's Prize is coming up for, you know, lots of our listeners and stuff. And that's the day where, you know, everyone wants to do well. And you'll see it so often, the brilliant front 9 and then finishing an ambulance on the back 9. So it's trying to learn those emotions and manage them. And it's going to be no different to the lads tonight, you know, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. It's how they manage their emotions. And whoever does it best tonight and then is playing well, there's your winner. Doesn't matter what his name is. I think mentally, if you can navigate your way around how you're playing and play according to that, as in, if you're not hitting the ball that well, don't be trying to hit shots you can't hit. If you get into trouble, and I do this all the time in playing lessons, like some guy hits in the trees, I'm like, just pitch it out there. See, can you make a bogey? Get 2 points. You know, if you could hit that 7-iron through that gap in the trees over the water to a back right flag, you probably wouldn't be there in the first place. So, you know, but that's hard because ego gets in the way all the time. So, and even it's difficult when you're playing well too. It's probably worse when you're playing well. So it's trying to manage all those things as much as trying to actually hit the ball as well.
Well, I've started something here, Gary. Tom Fairbrother says, Gary, you have to go to pre-open qualifying. Playing the Open Port Road should be unreal. Donald says, if Nathan offers the caddy for free, of course, would that twist Gary's arm into entering Open qualifying? No, that would send him the other way if he had to spend the day with me. Would you be allowed to enter qualifying?
The only thing is you're very good at looking for golf balls, so you could be.
I thought you were about to say I'm very good looking.
No, listen, that's not my level anymore. I'm 52. I'm trying to beat the old fellas. I'm not good enough to play in the Open in Portrush. So what? I'm just not good enough. I wouldn't enjoy it. So I think now I don't mean I wouldn't enjoy it. I'd love to play in the Open in Portrush, but I wouldn't go up there ceremonial to play 2 days or try play out of my boots and make the cut. I think and that's just why it surprises me with certain guys that still play regular tours that are seniors. You know, we play at 7,000 yards max. I still hit the ball plenty far for my age, but you know, if I'm teeing it up against Minu Lee, he's hitting the ball 40 yards past me. He's a club and a half, 2 clubs stronger than me. It's like going to a gunfight with a bow and arrow. So now I know there's more.
Dream. What about the dream, Gary? Just like why not?
Sunningdale is my dream.
Okay.
Listen, there's loads of lads to beat in Sunningdale that I've beaten in my career that are great players, but you can beat anyone on a given week. Sunningdale is my Portrush, so. And unfortunately, I still have to bloody qualify for that.
Donald saying, imagine a double Murph team striding down the 18th fairway on day 4 with a 4. I'm imagining it, Donald. Gary's just crushing my dreams. Guhubs beats. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I'd love to have a 4-shot lead and then get you to play the 18th.
Yeah, I still wouldn't be overly confident.
That would break the internet.
Absolutely. Gubbs beats says, helping
you
the
and me having a
full fist fight on the 18th.
Yeah. Can't believe you made 10.
Helping the Pebble guys prepare for the US Open in 2 years. I thought the US Open's in Pebble next year, is it? But anyways, I consult grounds crew. I'm a +2 and shot an 81 at Spyglass under open conditions. I think Spyglass would play 4 to 5 strokes harder than Oakmont. I don't think the US Open's at Spyglass, though. For reference, I shot a 73 at Oakmont. They're wondering what you would shoot at Oakmont, Gary.
I don't know. I'd hit a lot of fairways. I'd hit a lot more fairways than some of these lads. If I was driving the ball properly, I'd fancy myself to be I wouldn't obviously be as far as the lads, but I'd certainly fancy myself to be as straight. Don't know, chipping out of that rough. I don't know. I'd probably, if I played really well, I'd say, what's the par is 70, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I played really well, I'd say it'd be mid-70s maybe.
That's all right. Apologies,
but literally,
you're right.
Literally,
Pebble,
impossible.
Pebble is 2 years' time. Shinnecock Hills is next year for the US Open. Donald, Rory was accused of bottling before his Masters.
In
go on.
Right? No, go ahead. Continue on.
Yeah, there's obviously a little bit of a time delay has emerged here. So Donald says Rory was accused of bottling before his Masters, but Shane's record of converting winning positions into tournament wins is brutal. Hasn't had a proper PGA Tour win since 2019.
Bit harsh.
Yeah, I don't think you're talking about comparable players. And I think that's sort of what Shane acknowledged in his interview last week afterwards, of like these Sundays are becoming way too common for his own liking, that he's putting himself in these great positions and just isn't able to take advantage. Torin 4510, I like Lowry and appreciate he wears his heart in his sleeve. However, generally acting like an ace these days. Think winners are able to keep their mentality in check. And a couple more messages in around Shane as well, and generally his attitude and particularly some of the conversations he's had with his caddy. I'll run down through the rest of it quickly before we finish up. So Carlos Ortiz, we say, is on level par. Hatton, Tristan Lawrence, who was thereabouts. Tristan Lawrence, interesting case study, Gary, and one of those guys who was becoming ever more dominant on the European tour, gets one of those cards to go to America, doesn't really work out for him at all over there, really struggles, but tough golf course, like a Troon, seems to suit him, and he obviously hits the ball a mile.
He's played poorly over there. He had a bit of drama with his caddy. His caddy fell and hurt himself early in the season badly and won't caddy ever again.
Wow.
And
that's sad.
There was a bit of that, and then he's out of his comfort zone. He was very new on the European Tour. He's only really been at it 2 or 3 years. Got comfortable playing really well. Got his card. A bit fish out of water over there. Then he comes back to Europe for a couple of weeks and plays lovely. And goes back to the US Open, like the player he was last year before he got his card. So, and it doesn't get mentioned enough. And Ryan Fox mentioned it. Acclimatizing to playing and living in the States is very different. It's a brand new tour again. You don't know. It's not that you don't know the guys, but you don't know kind of what's expected. So it's like going into a new job. You know what I mean? So,
well, Shane is the prime example of that, isn't he?
Yeah, totally.
When Shane first went over and tried to, moved over, didn't really settle. And I do, when we go back to the Shane-Rory friendship, there's a bit of give and take for both of them there. That Shane, you always get, is such a sociable guy and needs a little community around him. And actually what Rory has given him is not just that, but also access to his community where, they're always talking about going over to Luke Donald's house and he has that day with Michael, like that. Suddenly he is a part of something over there and it feels a bit more like home. But certainly the first time he went over, I think we all thought he'd never go back.
True, because he lost his card in 2018. So he came back out and won his first event in Abu Dhabi and obviously won the Open, and then it was back in the top 50 and then he won the Open in July. But it can be a lonely life on the road. There's no denying that. And then you get a little bit out of form and you start fiddling around with different things and it can be a very slippy slope. So I'm delighted that Tristan Lawrence has kind of reverted back to whatever had worked for him in Europe. And because the thing all the time is his game, if he's I think he was top 3 on the DP World Tour last year.
Mm.
If he's top 3, he's comfortably a top 50 player in America. So when you see someone's form fall off a cliff, it's more to do with what's going on off the course nearly as much as what's going on the course.
So he's definitely still got a chance on 1 over par. Rasmus Nergaard Pedersen is one of those who's probably maybe thinking Ryder Cup and things like that on 2 over par. 3 over Bob McIntyre, Cam Young. 4 over is the group, and Scotty frustrated me. Just gave himself some chances on that back 9. Really felt if he got to +2, he'd have a great chance. And as we said earlier, he's just got to start quickly and hope that he's that presence on the leaderboard that makes it difficult for everybody else. Rory McIlroy, we've delayed it this long. Let's get into it then. So he finished on 10 over par, round of 74 yesterday. Battled really well on Friday night to make the cut and to keep himself there for the weekend. He finally stopped and he spoke to the media last night for 4 or 5 minutes, and rather than maybe settle things, has more added to the intrigue. So he was asked, I thought it was similar to Wednesday's press conference where he gave a different tone of answer depending on who was asking the question. And the few of the Irish journalists who asked questions, I think Stephen Watson and Greg Allen, and there might have been somebody else, he sort of gave more thoughtful and went into the second part of the answer. Whereas for almost everybody else, he gave the first part and then just went, no, I'm kind of done with that answer and moved on. So he sort of spoke about the course and all that sort of stuff, and nothing particularly interesting. And then was asked about yesterday was 6 rounds in a row, you stepped away. Has that been part and parcel to the frustration of the golf course? What do you attribute it to? He said, no, not really. It's more frustration with you guys. In what way? Just, I don't know. I've been totally available the last few years. I'm not saying, maybe not you guys, just maybe the whole thing. And he was actually about to go into then what it was. And whoever was asking the question said, did it stem for the whole driver thing? He said, yeah, part of it. I mean, that was part of it. But it's not as if like at Augusta, I skipped you guys on Thursday. So yeah, again, it's not out of the ordinary. I've done it before. I'm just doing it a little bit more often. Is it part of that you carried the tour in your own words for 3 or 4 years? Do you feel you've earned the right? And then he said in a definite tone of, I feel I've earned the right to do whatever I wanted to do. Yeah. And was then asked about, a requirement on players. And he was saying he hopes they don't change because it would. It's a nice luxury to have, not to have to stop. And from there, I think you would have thought, okay, Rory's pissed off at the media. And that's maybe the main driver of what's been going on. But he was asked at the end, then the very last question, what are you looking for tomorrow? And he said, hopefully around in under 4.5 hours and just get out of here. And yeah, I don't know. Looking at the Discord, I think there's a real split of journalists trying to make a story. Who cares? Like, he doesn't need to stop and talk to you. These guys never say anything anyways. He's perfectly entitled to do whatever the hell he wants. And a second part then of people thinking, well, actually, he's acting incredibly entitled here. My opinion, Gary, hasn't really changed, and I just think that this feels a little bit sad that what should be this glorious stretch through till the end of the year where everywhere he goes, people are patting him on the back and saying, yes, you got what you deserved in your golfing career. Thank you for that night at Augusta, one of the greatest nights of sport we've ever had. And that this was the moment where you go on the circuit and it's all good. And again, that press conference, and particularly that last answer I found was just I know he's out of the tournament. It just felt a bit like, yeah, I just want to get the hell out of here. And there's that sense from everything he's been saying that he just doesn't seem to want to be playing any golf at the moment. What do you think?
I don't know. The whole thing is very, very strange. It's a bit like Martinez when they won the World Cup in Qatar. Like celebration was destroyed with some stupid actions. I don't understand it. I'm really surprised at it because he's been someone that's universally popular. And he just seems to be, I don't know if there's something going on with him. I don't know what it is. Whether the media piss you off over the driver and all of that, maybe there was something. There's obviously been a trust broken, and he's got his back up over it, and it's completely clouded the fact that I don't think he's doing it as, oh, I've won the Grand Slam now and I can do whatever I want to do. I don't think that's the case, because that doesn't seem to be his personality. I think he's deeply, like he was when the whole live thing happened, he was really upset. He had given his heart and soul to the PGA Tour and they basically went behind his back. And then he just thought, I'm looking after Rory McIlroy. He's the biggest draw in the game, bar none. We've an Irish Open in the K Club this year. It's imperative that he's there, which he's going to be, unless he's injured. The tournament just wouldn't be the tournament without him. And that will be the case in many events on the PGA Tour, as it was at the Canadian Open last week. The corporates, the extra spectators. So he's hugely important for the tour. He's hugely important for the sport. The sound bites don't, he's universally loved, but these sound bites don't sound like him.
That's the point, isn't it? In a way that while he can make all of these points of, yeah, I'm just a bit pissed off, but this isn't you. So it's not as if you've been the guy who has been consistently up and down with the media or with your general profile. Like he's consistently given. And I can understand that maybe he feels I've nothing else to give. But there's a way of doing that isn't this. And again, I can overstate the journalistic importance of it. There is just his general demeanor around the golf course and a sort of fed upness of, and look, he's acknowledged that he clearly is massively struggling for a bit of motivation. That this thing that drove him for the last 10 years of what's the point? But he's going, I think I made this point on earlier in the week. He's going to Portrush in a month. He's going back home. This is the homecoming. After what happened in 2019 and the quadruple bogey, the people who are going to Portrush are expecting a performance, and they're expecting to see the Grand Slam winner, the greatest player of his generation. They're expecting them to interact, to be comfortable, to be happy. Rightly or wrongly, that's what people want from McIlroy. They're not expecting the guy to turn up and be, oh yeah, Portrush. And maybe he's not. Maybe he gets out of America and he's delighted with life. And yeah.
Well, I don't know. There's a couple of things. It's like, is it going to be a Bjorn Borg job and he might just down tools and that's it? He's done what he wanted to do. He has extensive business interests. Maybe, it could be a bit of a Greg Norman and he wants to go off and pursue all that stuff.
Bollocks to that, Gary.
No, I understand that.
Business interests.
No, I understand that. But you don't know how one's mind works. You can't be a ceremonial golfer. The lads were slagging me there on the chat there about going up to Portrush. That's ceremonial crap. You know what I mean? That's not what the sport's about. So Rory has to turn up at events and be Rory McIlroy. No one has any interest in Rory McIlroy if he's shooting 76 for the next 2 years. He's an irrelevance. He's famous. He's world loved because he's brilliant at golf. So he's not going to go to Gaza and start saving lives and get more popular. You love him because he plays golf. We love sports. We love Florian Wirtz because he's going to Liverpool because he's an amazing footballer. So you love these people because they do something at their sport. So they have to do what they do at their sport. If you don't, and you try to get too clever and start talking in riddles, you just look like, what are you even doing? Like, you're just there for the sport.
And as you say, it is riddles in a way. And
but it's dangerous ground.
I felt he was going to talk a bit deeper on it, and somebody jumped in with another question of if what happened at the PGA with the driver, and as he sees it, a leaking or however it became public, if he thinks there's something deeper at play that the journalists had his and Scotty's name, but they only put his name in to try and screw him and to question. It was written in a way that undermined what he did at the Masters. That again, I certainly, from reading an awful lot of this stuff, I don't think anybody took that up. Yes, there was some confusion as to what it all meant. I don't think there was any great sense of, whoa, the driver. What about the driver at the Masters? Was he cheating? I don't think there was any real conversation around that. So I just don't see how. And again,
But even
the
if
media has
was,
been the medium that his popularity has come through, where he has shown his vulnerabilities. He has shown this other side that we don't see from other golfers. And that has been on our TV screens for years and years and years. And that's why people buy into him. That's why people care more about him even than they care about Scotty Scheffler, than they care about Colin Morikawa or Xander Schauffele, because he just, not only is he a much better golfer, but he's actually a better human in the way he has portrayed himself.
I know that maybe the other side of it is that, if you look at sports people that achieve something ridiculous, maybe this whole Augusta thing, this whole build up for the next major in so many years has just taken way more out of him than he even understands himself. And he's absolutely flatlined at the moment. And when you're not doing what you should be doing, it's easy to run around and look for excuses as to why. And no one's going to, like most things in life, it's easier to blame somebody else. So, he moved and this happened or whatever. But maybe he's just totally flatlined at the moment and he's literally no interest.
That bit of he got there, and maybe what's happened post has been something of a letdown. You dream about what the weeks and months afterwards, and then he goes back playing at the Zurich, and you have in your head of maybe it's going to be something different to what it actually turned out to be, and you turn up at the PGA and it should be all about you in a way, but actually Scotty's there and people are talking to Scotty, and I don't know, you dream the scenario of what it would be like if you win that career Grand Slam, and then actually life goes on.
Yeah, I don't think he's I don't think he's that big of an egomaniac to be thinking like that, really.
That's just me.
Like there's always he's quite a humble guy, Rory, to be honest. From my interactions with him over the years, I don't see that he's not a blanker. But you get a lot of these star players just walk by and just blank you. It's not like that.
That's not him. Like that, and this doesn't seem like him. Like, as I would have always, and I don't know Rory at all, but I remember there was a period when he was winning his majors, he would end up coming on the show quite a lot around then, and people would go, "What's Rory like?" And I'd always just say, he's as down to earth as you can be for somebody of that level of fame and fortune. Like, he had time for everybody. So when you'd go in to record an interview, he would shake hands with the people who are behind the scenes. He would acknowledge them in a way that some people would just sit in the chair and let's get it on with. And all of that stuff matters, and all that stuff counts, and builds over time, that there's this massive goodwill, to the extent I think he had, certainly in recent years, because of the heartbreaks, become this sort of people's champion ahead of Augusta.
Oh, totally. He's the Arnold Palmer of the modern generation. If
so
Scotty
don't
is
blow it now.
So
someone needs to sit him down, Gary, and say, "Don't blow it now."
Yeah, I'll have a chat with him when I'm playing the practice round in Port Rush when I qualify. So.
Exactly. And Donald's pointing out, I wasn't slagging G Murph. I genuinely would love to see him entering Open. We would all love to see him entering Open qualifying.
It's like Drogheda United in the Champions League. It's just
not going to happen. It's a good,
No.
it's a good idea in paper, but the reality is that
you're four down. You're 4 down after 12 minutes, and you're like, "What are we doing here?" So,
well, I think Drogheda would take that right now rather than what's awaiting them, which is not even getting to play
I know.
in Europe.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Shocking. I'm heading up to Drogheda tomorrow, Gary. You should come along. Drogheda against Shamrock Rovers
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
Can you get me in the gate? Because these matches are sold out the whole time. I could do co-com.
I'm not even doing commentary. We'll just go and watch the match, and you can do the post-round interviews, so I don't need to.
Yeah, I'd love to do a few post-round football interviews.
Oh, brilliant! All right. Well, at least something good has come from this.
I could be the grammar police for all these footballers.
Wow! Don't go there, Gary. Don't go there.
It's my pet hate watching English football, and all the pundits.
Were you?
We was.
Slight tangent. Were you impressed by Trent's Spanish?
Phenomenal. I have to say, I laughed when I saw the connection with Robertson going to Atletico Madrid. Wouldn't it be hilarious if he signs with them and he opens up sounding like John Ram next week? It'd be just hilarious. 2 lads getting Spanish lessons for the last 12 months.
2 for 1 job. Here we gotta go.
I have to say, I really. You talk about sports people trying to make a difference. Like, can you imagine the love that's grown already for Trent just doing it?
Oh,
like that's caring. Like that, those little things are important.
Yeah, reading all the Spanish football writers were all, as the interpreter said when he finished, he went, "Wow!" And I'm convinced the interpreter was there to translate the other way around.
Totally,
yeah. So
brilliant.
Incredibly impressive. We're going to have to leave it there. I have a mini World Cup to get to. A lot of pressure on this morning. Could be some tears. A lot of stress.
Yeah.
A lot of stress.
Don't forget the shin pads.
What for me, in case it kicks off between the parents. So give us your winner, Gary.
I'm going to go for JJ Spawn.
I'd like JJ Spawn to win. I think it'd be we haven't had a JJ Spawn winning a major in a long time.
I'd love to see Scott win, but I'll go for JJ Spawn.
I'm going to go for Victor Hovland. I think he's going to get it together. He's going to hit some beautiful shots, and he's going to somehow get over the line. But I think it's going to be exciting tonight. I know the course has softened up considerably, but I hope they make it as difficult as they possibly can, and maybe Scotty goes on a little run to start the day. So they're teeing off tonight. I think it's about 7:15, so it's a good hour and 15 minutes earlier, which means we should all get to bed at a semi-reasonable time. Rory's playing with Andrew Novak. Scotty's out at around 6:05. He's playing with Nick Taylor. And then the last few groups, so 6:53, Tyrrell Hatton and Carlos Ortiz, 7:04, Victor Hovland and JJ Spawn, and then the final group at 7:15 is Adam Scott and Sam Burns. We will be back over the next couple of days with our review pods, with all that good stuff. We will convince Gary Murphy to enter open qualifying with me on the bag, just for the crack. Even if he shoots 85, at least I'll have had a good time.
Well, I've shot 85 in an open, so I'm good at that. Or 84 actually. So.
All right. Thanks for all the messages. Not quite at Masters Sunday level, the amount of interaction today. I think for us, like if Rory retires from golf, let's be perfectly honest, we're screwed. This is why we need him to cop the hell on quickly.
There's a young kid, and I'm not putting any pressure on him. But I watched John Doyle play in Baltray a couple of weeks ago. He's very impressive. And then he got beaten in a playoff last weekend in St. Andrews Links Trophy, which is the second biggest amateur event this side of the pond. He's one to watch.
We had a great reaction to Dave Howard last week. And Dave, I think he was going to pre-qualifying for the amateur. He got through that. So
he got through.
We had such a good reaction. Yeah. I think we'll do a bit more on the amateur scene. Maybe once we're through the Open and the Irish Open and heading into the winter and all that. But we'll there's a lot of interesting characters there, so we'll do all that as well. Gary, enjoy your Sunday. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much, and to you too, Daddy. Our father.
All right. Bloody hell. That's an awkward way to leave this.
Makes you feel
Talk to you soon. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy your golf.
Cheers, Nathan.
All my exes wear Rolexes. starter kit right here.